I'd like to bring this public hearing and regular city council meeting to order. Thank you, Stephen. It is currently 7:02. I'd like to do roll call. All council members are present. Janice is attending by phone. Recognize visitors.
Deputy Martin, Lincoln County Sheriff's Office.
Deputy Martin, thank you for joining us.
Yep.
I'd like to say the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, at this time I'd like to open the public hearing at 7:03 to hear any comments with regards to the property tax levy that we go through every year about this time. And I don't see any residents of Harrington in attendance, so I'm going to close said public hearing at 7:03. Thank you. Okay. Public comments. This would be your opportunity if you had something that you wanted to share with us.
Just came by to give a brief law enforcement report that kind of what's been going on in Harrington the past month. We've had 6 calls. Some malmiss. It came out as suspicious originally, but some vandalism to somebody's car. A verbal domestic. Just a couple fighting around in town here. A fraud that ended up being more of like a scam, just one of those typical phone scam things. We tend to get a lot of those. A civil issue involving a squatter on property that didn't really end up being too much of came out as again a suspicious, but it more was a civil issue. A civil issue over property line, and then a stalking case that also came out as a suspicious.
Okay.
Any questions for me on that? Okay.
I'm good. Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
So, you're obviously welcome to stay. We just like to put public comments on the front, so if something comes up, you can,
If you guys don't mind, I'll hang out. I like to see what other cities do
Sure.
too. So,
you want to share with the rest of them, your other position?
I'm electric city council member. So kind of like to. I actually enjoy coming to these. I like to see what other cities do and kind of take what you guys do. And
From where?
Electric city.
Oh, Electric City, yeah.
Electric city.
So, very cool. Okay. Any additions to our agenda?
I have 2
Okay.
weeds, and I wanted to give a little update on some changes with the library's phone stuff.
Okay. Anything else?
Mobile Home Park.
Okay.
We touched bases on that earlier. And I was approached by, talk about IT,
Okay.
possibly.
Okay. Anything else?
I'd like a discussion on, since we're talking about the library board, actually the instatement of the cemetery board.
Okay. Cool. All right. So, did you guys get a chance to see the resolution for the levy?
Yeah. Comparison to last year, what,
So this represents the 1% that we can actually get Last year, we asked for 2.5%. Of course, you only get, the state allowed 1%.
Right.
So, and I asked the auditor's office about that, and was basically told, yeah, you can ask for whatever you want, but you're only gonna get up to the 1%.
And just so everybody knows, where does that money come from or collected from?
This is 1% of the excise tax of the property taxes. So what it amounts to is an increase of $539 for the year for the entire city.
Okay. So people are gonna pay more, or they just get a bigger share of what's already collected? See, I don't know, I just ask because I don't know that part.
It just means we get a bigger share of what is already being collected.
Yeah.
They're not changing the property tax rate, they're just,
Yeah, the property tax in Lincoln County, it's been discussed, they adjust it every 6 years, and they're looking to change that model so that they're doing moderate increases every year instead of one big adjustment every 6 years.
Right, okay.
I don't think that's been implemented yet.
It was just clarification for everybody that's anybody listening,
Sure.
you know.
So this is, if it's gonna be done, it has to be done and turned in by the end of the month. And since this is probably our last full-blown council meeting between now and then, I'd rather not have a November 29th council meeting trying to clean up stuff.
Okay.
So can we entertain a motion?
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Not here. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you. Any opposed? No? That's 500. Right, thank you. Next on our agenda is the other housekeeping resolution about transporting. We have to have specific people named that are allowed to transport money to the bank for deposits, and then who would be the signers. Our checks require 2 counter signatures. It was brought up at the last council meeting that it would be wise and prudent to have an additional person than just the mayor and the clerk treasurer. So that's why, if you guys look at the way this got written up, this is basically the same thing that got signed in December last year, but I left blank spaces for names that we can write in.
Okay. Is it the same thing that was sent out?
Actually, there was one change. It was pointed out to me that Cassie's name was misspelled
Okay.
in one of the spots, so that's the only correction.
Who are you thinking for the third person?
Somebody on the council. I mean, personally, I think the mayor pro tem makes the most sense, but it's up to you. I just know that we can't do business and sign checks and send out, take care of invoices and what have you without enough people. It did bring to home that only having 2 people to sign the checks has problems, because we haven't been able to really do anything for 2 weeks. Not that we needed to do anything before tonight anyway, but still, if it had been something different.
And the deputy, yeah, the mayor, clerk treasurer, and deputy clerk. And you want somebody more than that?
Well, no, that's just to transport the money to make a deposit. Down below that is the authorized signers.
Without commenting on who the third person should be right now, because I know that David's pro tem and he has had concerns about it being a council member. But I will say this, if nothing else, we should have a plan in place that if you got hit by a bus and all of a sudden David is the mayor, I mean, that is one thing that we should at least have some kind of a transition plan or something, because the pro tem can be the mayor on a short notice. So I'm not really trying to make the argument that it should be the pro tem necessarily, but if we don't do that, we might want to think about what impacts that could have.
I would write it up that the pro temp mayor, whoever that may be, should be a signer.
So this is a document that actually has more significance with the bank.
Right.
So they want specific, they want a name.
Names.
They want a specific name.
They don't want a
David.
job title.
Yeah, exactly, and I actually have their
Did you see
signature
this?
cards.
I looked it
saw it
over I looked over the digital copy.
I'm sorry
Yeah,
if there's any background noise, but I'm in complete agreement that it should be the pro tem, and then if something was to happen, as Stephen stated, then we revisit it at that time.
yeah, admittedly, you can rewrite and redo this document as
Yes,
many times as
Correct.
needed.
yeah. And like you stated, Mr. Mayor, that it's literally for the bank.
But I would agree having 3 signers is most appropriate.
Yeah, yeah, and it's just 2 have to sign the check, but yeah, I'm sick, someone's hurt, whatever, someone quits. So,
I'm in agreement for 4 signers
yeah, there's,
because of that reason. Yeah.
Who would, I'm curious, who would you make the four, who, do you have a fourth in mind, Janice?
Definitely
The
clerk.
mayor, pro tem mayor, and the 2 clerks.
Oh, okay, 2 clerks.
I definitely would agree with the clerk, if we're gonna keep the 2
And,
clerks.
I mean, Joe, if you were out, if somebody in the office was on vacation and you were out of town, you know,
yeah,
then there's still 2 signers. That, we're covered either way.
yeah, it's, exactly.
I'm good with all 4, as long as you have no issues with being a signer as the deputy mayor
Pro tem.
or
I don't-
pro
no,
temp.
I don't have a problem with it. And do they have a limit to signers?
Well, I mean, it's our claims. I mean, technically, there shouldn't be a check that goes out of here that hasn't been approved
Right.
by
On the
council.
claim.
Technically, all council signs.
We all approve the claims and then
Yeah,
Right.
checks get issued and 2 people have to sign them.
Right. But the bank's requirement doesn't say,
yeah, they literally want to have a signer. I mean, that's.
but they don't have a limit to how many, I mean, that's what I was getting at.
Oh, no,
Okay.
Well, move to approve as amended.
4 people?
Yeah.
I'll second it then.
okay. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you. It's 500. All right. Moving right along, library board appointee. I would, for the vacated library board position, which I believe is number 1, if I looked at the records correctly. I'm gonna mess up her last name, but I sent it out to you guys.
Van Pevenage?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. Tanya,
Yes.
I'm recommending we appoint her to the library board. That does come with by consent of the council.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, who's seconding that?
Chris? Okay. Any discussion?
Nope.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you. All right. Additions to the agenda. Stephen, you wanted to talk about weeds.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up, sorry, someone brought to my attention that the screen is frozen. I just wanted to bring up, and this I plan to do as a standing thing, because I've heard a lot from the community in various places that I've been about complaints about the weeds. And so I would just like to make sure that I'm going to keep bringing this up at least for a check-in every meeting until we have the capability in-house. And I don't care which public works employee it would be, or that the council decides we're not going to have the capability in-house. Because I think it's been an intention, and it's an expressed intention of the council to have weed spraying capability. So either we need to get it done, or I want to have something to offer the public to say, we decided we aren't doing that.
Okay.
So,
The course of action that has been taken is both of our public works employees have collectively done the research on what is needed to get it done, and I have purchased a book that is on its way. It's done specific for the state of Washington. I got it through the Wazoo,
Weed board?
their ag department has this book that, so I got it ordered, and they basically have to read that up. It tells them what to do, how to do it, and then they have to go to Spokane Valley, take a test at a proctored test location, and then done.
okay.
Or to follow up on that, is that something that they're gonna do through WSU Extension?
My understanding is they
WSBA?
just have to pass the test. They do not have to go to a classroom, so they basically got the materials
Okay.
to learn how to do it.
The only reason, Mr. Mayor, what I'm propose that is that I think it's in February every year. They have continuing classes for credits and stuff. Once you have a license, you have to
The CE credits.
obtain, yeah, so many credits a year in a block of years. Either 5 years, I think it is. You have to have X amount of credits. But they do have, it's a couple day seminar, whatever. But they have, during that time, they have, WSU puts on study class. They'll go through all this material and, teach them, whatever.
Okay.
And then the second day, they take a test, and that's how they get their license. I would probably highly recommend that, because if these guys have no background whatsoever in this,
I think Lance has some background in it, more so than Ken.
because these aren't your typical tests. They're which color is black, and there's about 3 of them, but they want to know which one is darker black. They're trying to trick you up on everything.
Okay.
Would you agree? Anybody
Yeah,
started taking it?
yeah.
So
I didn't do good on the first time I took it.
So I mean, it would, instead of running up there and having to take the test over and over and over, it'll aid them in the knowledge you're gonna get out of it, and I think it'd be a smoother transition. It's just my recommendation. You do what you want, but
I'd recommend sending them to a class.
Okay.
it's all the same. It's in February. It's through WSU.
Okay. I will
I-
look into that.
And I'm sorry, I was gonna get you that information, but I haven't. It slipped my mind, so it's been a while.
And I don't think we've formalized this. This probably would go into writing when we would establish pay scales and stuff, but it had been at least favorably discussed by the council before that if one of the employees picks up the certification, there is a commensurate pay bump with that, because if we don't have that capability in-house, we have to pay more to a third party. So it is a financial advantage to the city to at least recognize some or the majority of that cost difference to our own employees.
I would agree.
Now, I'm curious, to actually purchase the chemicals, do you have to have the certification?
Yes.
You have to have your license, your little card.
Restricted use pesticides, you have to have a license. And in this case, it would be called, you have a license and then you have endorsements. For the city, they would have a license and they would have it would be a public operator, and their endorsements would be right-of-ways, turf and ornamental probably, and that's, well, I said right-of-ways and turf and ornamental, and
Yeah, I think when I always sign up, it's private applicator.
That's
so
for-
it's for us, but for the city, it would be
public,
public.
public operator.
Yeah.
They're both the same price, I believe.
I think the cities and municipalities get a significant break on getting their people licensed compared to you guys.
See, I think we got paid $45 a year.
That'll be the same,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's
They
probably
have-
the same number.
Yeah.
Yeah. It used to be a lot cheaper, but
I would agree with the pay scale bump based on having the certificate, considering how much of a hassle it is to get somebody to come in and spray.
Well, and I think
Well, and it's not cheap.
there's also a budgetary advantage to this, right? Because if the assumption is we're going to spray weeds one way or another, which in fairness has not really been the way we've operated. But if you start with the assumption we're going to spray weeds one way or another, from a budget standpoint, there isn't a lot of reason, unless we're very confident in our ability to retain employees, which I really hope we are going forward. Historically, that hasn't been the case. But to have it budgeted to say we believe it's going to cost X either way keeps the budget safe. And I think it gives our employees more incentive to say, well, I want to get more certifications because I can make a significant amount of money. When we don't give them much or any of that differential, there's not an incentive for them to do it because we haven't made these things a part of the official job description. So why am I going to do it if I'm not going to get a lot of benefit from it? And then we have this weird thing where it's like, well, if the capability is not in-house, then the budget gets hit hard. And if the capability is in-house, then we get a benefit. And so I think it's nice to equal it out as much as we feel like we can. But
Okay. I will look in on that. Thank you. Library phones.
yeah, just a quick thing because Joe got a hold of another phone from work that was being let go, so I got that program for the library. But the main thing that I wanted to share with this is that I got the library moved off onto their own VoIP.ms account, which is how we run our phone system here. And so the nice thing is that we were maintaining two numbers because David wisely, we talked about should we get rid of our old fax number, the 4370. And David wisely said maybe we shouldn't get rid of it because maybe we will want that, maybe the library will want it. Well, the library said, yep, we want it. We weren't doing anything with it. It didn't go anywhere. You dialed it, it just hung up. So the library said they wanted it, so I transferred it to their account. So they're paying all the costs for that now, and it'll come out of the library's budget, not our budget. So it's no new costs. They still had a phone line, they still had a voicemail, and we were still holding a number we weren't doing anything with. So none of this is new. But now we've separated those costs out so that the city will just be paying for its out of its budget and the library out of its budget. So now you can call the library directly at 253-4370. And in case anyone's wondering, because we actually had this discussion, Cassie asked about it, fax, no one seems to believe fax is a thing as far as I've been able to tell. Multiple clerks and everything none of the agencies want faxes. They scan everything and have for years. So I've not heard anyone say we need a fax line. I know that there was a time where citizens wanted to come in and use that benefit, but as far as I've heard, the city's never felt and even actually the last year that we were over there, the cable to the fax machine wasn't even connected for a year. So no one's felt its absence for a long time. So
Yeah, I think that technology, I mean, I don't know anybody who has an actual fax machine anymore. If you have the fax number, it's going to the fax server, which then comes to you in the form of an email. So,
My urologist uses a fax machine.
okay.
Yeah.
Most doctors' offices still use a fax machine.
All right. David, you wanted to bring
Sure.
up the mole home park.
yes, in our earlier discussion, There was concern, did you have a chance, Mr. Mayor, to contact the building inspector?
I did not have that chance.
Okay.
no.
After concern from Public Works, I'm not sure if the rest of council knows what we're talking about, but they're placing another mobile home, or setting another home. I believe it's already set.
It's set.
And to what degree are they following the plans and what we granted them for certificates of, power, sewer, and water? Spacing, I think there was some current concerns that they were getting a little close. I don't know.
So if we look at the plan that they provided,
Right.
the placement of this one is not close. It holds the correct geometric orientation, if you will,
So, yeah.
facing east and west or whatever. But it's where it sits on the ground is not where their plan indicated by 30, 40 feet.
I was gonna say, there's variances and ordinances associated with distance from drives, especially if it's a drive to a secondary resident on the property and all of that stuff, so.
There's some differences in our codes when it comes to setbacks and all the rest of that. It's pretty well outlined. The question really boils down to this, because there was another situation that came up. Was it the beginning of this year? Yes. Earlier this year.
Talking about what we learned in the paper?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That had to do with the ownership. Mm-hmm. Because the property was moved out of the Breeze's name and put into an LLC. And I did check with our city attorney at that time, and the comment really came down to how much money do you want to spend in legal fees to make this and hold them issue, and then this is just the next step in that. How much money because I have a hard time believing they wouldn't push back.
I'm a little concerned. So, if there was agreed upon floor plan or layout of those buildings, and they're not following it, from a legal perspective, we turned over all of our responsibility to the county associated with inspections and stuff like that.
Building permits, basically. Yes.
Right. So, if they're not following the agreed upon setup, then the county can't issue a certificate of occupancy for the property. They can put it there,
Certificate.
but if the county doesn't issue the certificate of occupancy, they can't let anybody live in it.
That's a good point.
So if they're not following what they agreed to, all we have to do is push on the county to say, this isn't what was agreed to, this isn't where this is supposed to be, don't issue the occupancy authorization.
We'll follow up on that. For sure, is 376, our ordinance 376, is that still valid, correct?
As far as I know, I don't have the number memorized, but that sounds familiar.
I don't remember redoing one, so I just wanted everybody's, yeah, you're right, okay.
Yeah, it's, I think we're talking about the last time this was visited and voted upon, yeah.
Yeah. My question, I think the former mayor I think they have a copy of it. They
Yeah,
should.
It's
Davenport, or the building inspector, should have a copy of this, or they talked about it.
okay.
I don't know. And that would answer Councilman Meats' question, or his concerns, if it doesn't meet all this stuff, because there's quite a bit of stuff that has to be met, and I think, don't quote me, I'm not a lawyer, but originally it was granted a conditional use permit, and the word conditional means something. That I believe that you can change it. In other words, it's not set, you can impose different things that you agreed on or disagree with later.
I'm hoping somebody can enlighten me on it.
Yeah.
So, that's a single piece of property, one city lot ID or one block ID.
I'm sure it is more than one parcel, we'd have to look it up.
Yeah, no,
but
it's more than one
the
parcel.
It's the same ownership,
Yeah.
continuous ownership.
Right, but is it more than one parcel?
Oh, yeah.
Do we have a,
And are they crossing parcel boundaries with their placements?
We'd have to look exactly. I can almost guarantee you the property has not been surveyed.
The parcels on that end of town are
Are
smaller.
they smaller? Yeah.
well, I know
Well,
that,
and I'm looking at the map behind you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's one city block.
Yeah, no, it's crossing multiple.
No, it's the bottom.
It's right in here. This is third.
Because that's the creek.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah, so if the houses cross property boundaries, then shouldn't those individual pieces of property be classified as multifamily? If you've got multiple homes on it?
I think that was one of the things in, what was it, 2005 that got addressed was the zoning.
Two
of that
thou-
property.
Yeah.
1994, they
Yeah.
come before council. I wanted to change it from industrial to R2. You do that, and if memory serves me correctly, establishing a park, then it takes on a new animal or a new sandbox. Within that park, that kind of takes away everything, other zoning. I mean, you're zoned for it, but other restrictions and other requirements now take place. Example would be like each home, residential home, if it's a double wide, it needs to be the parcel needs to be so long and so wide, and if it's a single wide, it has to be. I think it's 100 by 40 for one of them, and then it's 100 by 40, and then 100 by 60, the bigger ones. That's the. I don't know if they call it a parcel, but that is the
But based on placement, you also have to consider drives.
right, and within that,
Egress to individual units.
each one, if you look up the page 8 and 9 in 376, the original one, mobile home park, it was for lots 4 and 5 in block 5. So that is a city block, and they requested from council way back when for lots 4 and 5 to be the park. Does that kind of shed a little light?
Well, I know there's more than that for lots in there.
But once you make it a park, then you can make multiple lots in there. And at this point, they were given a conditional use permit for 3. They come to council a year ago or whenever, and we granted them a 4th one. But each one of those has restrictions, how big the lots, or the placement lots, I guess, the development lots. Like I said, for a double wide, it's 100 feet by 60 feet, and a single is 100 feet by 40 feet. Look up page 8 and 9.
Another copy.
That's why I was kind of wondering if that 376 is still, we didn't rewrite.
Well, it was
Another one.
that was an amendment, I believe, that
Right.
was to certain items. I would say this, I'll say it for the benefit of public record here, and then if I happen to see the owners of the property, I will say it directly to them, but I'm personally becoming much frustrated as to the way in which they are attempting compliance with this. First of all, we had multiple attempts to try and get the needed documentation in the first place before we voted on it. And then second of all, we find that property ownership moved to another entity without approval of the council, which was part of the original reason why they came and sought council approval in the first place, to transfer it from the entity of the deceased father to him. And now to learn that a building is being set on the property in egregious misplacement from what had been approved would lead me to not continue down this path should it come to such a vote.
Okay, well, page 13, to go a little further what you're saying, Stephen. Page 13, certificate of development, placement of home permit. Certificates shall be non-transferable to any person, firm, or corp without approval of city council.
That's it.
Is that what you're referring to?
Yep, and that was already, it's not like a person can claim ignorance of that, because that was one of the things that prompted them coming to us in the first place, because Mike Freeze originally owned that. And they needed to get that changed. Or is it Jerry? The father, Jerry,
It's the father.
Jerry to Mike. Yeah, so it's a well-known clause. It's been examined, and it felt rather cavalier to change it again after that had just been established.
I believe it's for each one here. I think I just paraphrased it here when I looked at it. And then page 13 and 14, chapter 1.04, decimal 020, each mobile home intended for placement on a designated mobile home lot, which it is, for dwelling, a placement permit shall be obtained from building inspector department and conform to the standards contained in ordinance 376.
That's one thing I haven't noticed, is there is no posted building permits associated with the construction going on there.
I know I had to have mine. out
Oh, I had
front where you
mine
could see
posted
it.
in the window the whole time I was
Yeah.
doing the remodel
I
on
had
my
mine-
place.
I had mine on a post right out on the front of the lot.
The only thing I can see, folks, that would be an issue, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that could be, but is that maintaining the minimum lot sizes. I think, wasn't there some neighbor, well. Or is
my
it
other-
100 by 60 and, you know, are they, or is it right up next door to it and,
Our, I haven't measured it, like I said, and I'm not a surveyor, but I do know that the parcels as they're lined up in the city run
north-south or east-west?
They run
East-west.
east-west.
Okay.
east-west, and, you know, two of the buildings
North-south.
are
Crossing.
north-south.
Yeah.
So there's no way they're not crossing multiple parcel lines.
Well, the only thing in their defense, I would say,
Well-
once they originally asked for lots 4 and 5 of block 5 to become the park, that kind of wipes away the city plat at that time once it was agreed upon. Yes, this is a park. So in that park,
Yeah,
these
but
are the
that's parcel
requirements.
4 and 5.
Right.
If they cross any of those other boundaries, unless it was amended to include parcels behind it or parcels next to it,
I believe they own the bulk of that whole,
it doesn't matter.
but there is an alley that runs straight through the center.
Yeah, that alley is a gully that runs.
I'm just saying on the map, there's an alley. right
Yeah,
away.
it's actually the Olaf Road that runs through there. What's supposed to be Olaf.
Running east and west, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because on page 3, it says,
To the north of that is the first trailer. To the south of that would be
There's another home.
another home.
Yeah.
mobile home park defined. Mobile home park means any site, lot, field, or tract of land under the ownership or management of one person, firm, or corporation, which is divided into mobile home and/or recreational vehicle lots as defined by this ordinance. For the purpose of locating 2 or more mobile homes or recreation vehicles, combination thereof, for dwelling or sleeping purposes, provided that the lots are leased or rented and not sold to the occupant. More legal jargon.
So did they include any additional lots?
No, I don't believe so. I think whatever got approved in 2005 to put this in to begin with is,
Well,
with the exception of adding one
'Cause-
more unit.
Lots on that.
I'm thinking, once it's become a park, that, forget, in my mind, you forget that because it becomes, the mobile home park becomes its own
Right,
lot,
but the
field,
mobile
or tract.
the mobile home park itself is lot 4 and 5. of Block 5.
So you're saying they went out of the sandbox?
So if they actually went outside of that sandbox, then that's also an issue. And I know lots in this town are 50 feet wide. So you have a trailer and then a 60-foot trailer with at least 40 feet between them.
I know what you're saying, yes.
So,
Well, I would recommend to the clerk or to the mayor that make sure, is his name Ryan? Whomever's
That's
the,
Ryan James.
okay, that they have a copy of this and ask them if each dwelling has been permitted, has a certificate, if everything's been followed in here.
was a certificate of occupancy issued for the current residents on that property?
I will do some digging in the next week.
Okay, it's not like you don't have nothing to do, I'm sorry.
No, this is important stuff, I mean, because it's setting the bar for,
It'd have to come from.
I'm
you.
looking at it from our perspective. I mean, we've done construction on our property. We went through it letter by letter on everything we needed to do. I mean, I've got a shop with 13-foot sidewalls. There's ordinances against that. I had to make sure that I wasn't going to be against any of those ordinances before I put that in. So,
okay, well, we'll dig in with the county permit manager.
Anybody, you want to see this anymore?
no, I'm good.
Anybody? Okay, thanks. Mayor? Not to open up a can of worms here, but it was something that was discussed earlier, so.
So I would expect that's 100 by 150 feet is what was approved for the park.
There was some documentation what the original, and I believe it was in 94. Was
I
that
think 94
right?
is when that ordinance was
Yeah.
done.
And that
Yes,
that set a lot of the baseline.
the minutes.
I mean, I have gotten questions from the community about the vote that we took, and it's important to note what was already established before we were approached with an amendment. There was a lot of things that were already done that I don't think I would have voted for in the first place, but we were, at our stage in the game, we were voting yes or no on an amendment, so.
Right. Yeah, because they're looking at the 2005 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see any adjustment to the actual lots included.
Is that the same one? Where in the Sam heck? Okay, this is part of it. Let's see, here's some of the conditions. R2 zoning requires 1,200 square feet per home, and all setback requirements apply. So, and it doesn't matter, it just says 1,200 square feet per home. It doesn't matter if it's double wide or single wide. That was the original.
Yeah, I think the ordinance clarifies.
I never saw that part, but it did say certain. And these were minutes for clarification. These were December 14th, 2005. So I'm trying to find where 94 was. I think that was a request.
That's the ordinance, 376. I believe is
Let's see. You may be right. Yes, September 14th, 1994. Ordinance 376 was official. So, kind of like,
Did the county relinquish the vacated street? Or did the city relinquish that to them as an property?
no.
Nope.
the alley, you mean?
But
Yeah.
they have rebuilt it.
No, the road.
Oh, the road. Oh, sorry,
yeah,
not
that's
the alley.
been, I think that's gone. That's vacated. We have a map here vacated.
We have a sewer main running right down.
Right, you'd still have an easement for that, but far as an actual development, because I think right now there's a house and some trees and a garage on that section of what he's referring to.
Yeah, that's what I'm referring to.
Yeah, I believe there was, we looked that up.
Street?
There's been,
Yeah, so
think that was vacated
technically
years ago.
Olaf goes right through there.
Right.
right, that's been vacated, that section.
That would
I'm almost sure of it.
be the second place in town where we have a building over the top of a street.
I think that is correct, but that's, okay. Well, I'm good, so make sure you don't lose this. Good information.
Getting a lot of mileage.
Yes, it is.
All right.
Okay.
And David, you also wanted to bring up the IT questions?
Yes, IT was out and about. It is discussion from some people approached me. And what does council, fellow council members feel? I know that it's in our policy handbook or city handbook that when the need, or if we feel the need, we have a position, but not an official position for IT. And several reasons. I know Stephen's done a good job, but going forward to clean things up, I just throwing out an idea that maybe I know of a person put their name in and asked more information, and I will give that to you to make that. It's not my place to reach out to him.
Okay.
I feel, but kind of what we need, and you know more about that in the internal office and all that stuff. But would that free up and avoid any conflict of interest and to lighten the load on Councilman Hardy's current position, I guess what you've been doing? Do we see any benefit to doing that? And I don't think I personally don't think it's a full-time position. It looks like me like it's more of a part-time or what. I'm just throwing stuff out there right now, so.
I
input,
would
please.
not suggest the city take on the responsibility and the risks associated with actually having on-staff IT. If we are considering doing anything with IT, I would recommend outsourcing it.
Yeah, I was going to say something to that.
Either
effect.
to the county
Okay.
or to a company who is certified to deal with public information.
Liability wise.
From a liabilities perspective, there's way too much risk with having on-staff IT. And that's my concern with you doing IT, is that the legal liability associated with that is a huge risk.
Is there a question?
Blake, weigh in.
If I may.
Yeah.
Electric City and Grand Coulee use Vision IT services. So,
But there are several out there.
several, that's just an idea.
Yeah. But from a liability perspective and a legal perspective, if the computers were stolen, breached, data was taken and made public, we would not want an employee to be the one that was responsible for that.
Employer, council member,
Or a council member. I wouldn't want that either.
that would be
Okay. I don't see us having enough IT work here to support even a part-time position. So, I mean, there's like any place, there's
I would consider
bursts of
talking to the
activity
county,
and then, so,
see if the county would take on just the general administration of the PCs.
so,
but to answer Deputy
Are we
Martin's,
able, sorry,
Go ahead,
are we
go
able
ahead.
to reach out to different entities and find out if they're willing just to be like an on-call basis and what that would look like? Because I'm in complete agreement that we need to take that liability off of the city of Harrington and off of our council.
okay. Well, I'm more than happy to speak with, different entities and people and basically find out their skill sets and what the cost is.
Yeah, I would consider talking to the county because they already have all the systems, applications, and services. They would just be charging us for the use of them and support of them. I mean, they already support the sheriff's department and their computers.
No problems?
No problems.
Okay. How many people are in the Electric City, by the way?
1,000.
Okay, so a little bigger in Harrington, about 3 times, almost,
Twice.
at least twice.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, Chris, you want to review the cemetery board and get it on, activated, on board, get it
Yes.
going again?
We have a library board. I know there are currently 2 funds associated with the cemetery. There's the maintenance fund and the,
Yes, correct.
okay. I would really like to have us entertain actually bringing a board online. We were up there putting flags on graves, and there's some serious maintenance stuff that should be considered, evaluated. There's headstones you can't even read the names on anymore.
Sure. I know that Janice had indicated that when one got going again, that she wanted to be on it, and I hope that's still the case.
Yes, it is.
I'll have to reread the ordinance that created that and find out how many people there are supposed to be on it.
But looking at the documentation you provided associated with the library board, there's got to be something out there that's the same.
And there probably is. I mean, because the library, or I'm sorry, not the library, the cemetery was, it was a fully functioning
Board.
board at one point in time. It's just whispered away. I'm just saying, let's find the ordinance that establishes how many, what the makeup is. Sometimes there's supposed to be a council person.
The cemetery
sometimes
board
there's not.
was disbanded by ordinance,
Was it?
I believe.
Okay.
Maybe, I was gonna ask you,
Well, then if that's the case, we'll have to make sure it's gone and then
Yeah.
we can recreate it.
I think just find people to show up and swear them in is gonna be a tough enough job.
We've already got quite a few people who are interested in participating in that.
Good.
We also have certain aspects of the school that might be interested in assisting with the maintenance, upkeep, and things along those lines, or improvements to the cemetery. So I think there's an interest in it.
Okay.
We just need to identify exactly what we need to do to get it put back together.
Okay. Well, I will start by trying to find out, do we have a cemetery board in our ordinances? And if so, what does it look like? And if it's been disbanded, so as soon as I can find that out, I'll let you guys all know. And then you guys can take it from there. Yeah, I mean, I'm all for it.
And what the scope is, what they're gonna do, and I don't recall, I remember seeing it, but I don't recall what, some of the issues that arose from it. There was, I'm not sure what that was now, I think it was more, well, enough said. Find out
Yeah,
start out at plan A first.
yep.
I mean, you've got headstones that are broken,
yeah,
you've got
I've been up
headstones
there.
that are falling off, you've got headstones that are sitting next to where they're supposed to be.
And that's, there again, just my opinion, it comes back to the argument of farming out the upkeep to it. I personally have seen stones that have been, mowers, and
Well,
they don't take the,
My understanding,
Care.
my understanding is there's supposed to be a letter for donations to those funds that goes out every year.
in February.
Those donations are supposed to be used for upkeep and improvement of the cemetery.
They come in 2 forms. One is for that, for the maintenance, but then you have other people that donate to the endowment fund.
Yeah,
Right.
they have a choice.
Yeah.
There's only 2 of them, right?
What's that?
There was only two choices, wasn't there? I remember right?
Yeah,
And so, and more importantly, now you brought that up, is that make sure that we are following it, or if it's still valid, but so much from grave sales went to certain places. the opening, closing went to certain
10%
places.
of the grave sales
Yeah.
goes into the endowment fund. I remember reading that.
So there was stuff divvied up that way.
Okay. I will,
Well, here's the other thing though, is that if the Fed continues to keep cutting rates, we're going to find ourselves back in the position that we were in when David and I joined, which is there is basically no endowment fund. And what I mean by that is that when the interest rate, prime interest rate, is chicken feed, all of that endowment money basically doesn't exist. It was producing for us, what, $500 a year? Okay, so we're having hundreds of thousands of dollars sitting in the bank that people have donated, was not doing anything for us when David and I got on.
Yep.
So and lately that's not been the case because the interest rates went way up. Great, it's been producing some real money. But if the Fed's going to cut rates again, someone's going to have to figure out how much risk can legally and then can socially and then should be incurred in trying to find better yield on that investment. Because, like I said, otherwise we're just going to get back to the point where we essentially have no endowment fund.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to be real careful with doing anything to that fund.
I know, I would recommend, this is personally, that we turn it over to a financial institution other than a bank, investment firm. Because we reached out to some older entities in town that were concerned about it, but I get it, they didn't really want the responsibility. But I think legally, and nobody here, this guy, I think for tax, it has to have, we have to have a board, we have a statement of principles, but we have to have a board in place. And not the board that you're talking about, it's the financial gurus, 3 to 5 of them, or so, there's a number of them. And not all, they're not from council, they're
basically like a trustee.
watching it and invest in it, because people, they it means a lot to them and they want this to work, and there's no reason why it shouldn't. So I recommend the council sit down and we figure out some financial advisors or firms that we can agree on, and either interview them or whatever, and we turn this albatross over to them and get the money working where it should be, and then kind of alleviate some stress and tidy up our bookwork, our obligation with audits and stuff. And people will generally, I think, be more inclined to maybe donate to it if they know it's being managed properly.
Well, I think that'd also be more
I
inclined
have,
to,
sorry.
Go ahead, Janice.
I don't think that the city council should be making all those decisions. I think that we need to have the cemetery board make
Right.
decisions,
No, that's
bring
what
it
I
to the
was-
council
That was what I was saying.
as part of the city of Harrington, and then the council approve.
No, well, when I was, I would agree, Janice. Sorry, I didn't maybe follow the thought, but I brought all that up to say that is, in my mind, one of the prime reasons to get a cemetery board on, because rates are going to keep cutting, and we should have the cemetery board make a decision on what investments are possible or prudent. So I totally agree with you.
Okay.
I'm good.
So I'll do my part initially and find out, does it exist on paper or does it not? And move forward from there. All right.
What are we up to?
We are up to approve the minutes from October 30th.
So moved.
second.
Any discussion?
I only have one question, and just thoughts for council or anybody that chime in, is under discussion, there was discussion concerning the clerk treasurer being allowed to take state mandated holidays. I've never heard mandated holiday, I heard observed holidays, but does the state have mandated? Or they just observed holidays?
No, they're the ones that we put in our handbook. Like we added Juneteenth because it was state mandated for government organizations.
Okay.
It's not mandated for businesses. But.
In our policy book and stuff, I never heard the terminology mandated. It's a minor technicality, but, and at times other than the designated days. Now, that is something we'll probably get back to when we do our policy book, so I will, other than that, I have no, it's what we talked about, it looks good to me.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion? Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes from October 30th, signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you. Okay, I see. We don't have an October, the next line item is a non-issue, the October 24th payroll, that it's been done. So that was the last meeting, so, sorry, that didn't.
Because it was at the end of the very end.
Yeah,
of the
and
month.
it didn't get deleted when I redid the agenda, so. So, observe the check record, check register that was approved. I'm very rusty, as in non-existent on my Springbrook deals. We just got this figured out, Cassie figured out how to get this printed off today. This is the entire month of October, so this is stuff you've seen twice, and I just printed it off. You did not get these in the packet.
Okay. Right off,
It's October 1 to current.
But it's October 1 current.
okay.
This is for just observing
Just
check
observing,
register.
yes.
Yeah.
So, okay. Observation, Sunbelt Rentals, how many times did we use them? Is that different times, or they, I see two in here.
We have used them multiple times.
And the reason why I bring that up, the argument again for, it behoove the city to look into
Yeah.
some equipment.
And we are going to need to use it at least one more time before the end of the year. So,
I wonder what, okay, what, Round Park. Are we planning on using the same machine or something similar for our sewer line?
yeah, we're replacing a sewer line that has been a constant problem. At the north end of town, actually, near the north end Motorman Park. It's been backing up for years.
Where it turns.
It's actually
That closed street,
Like
that didn't hold off.
down Olaf, so
Yeah.
there's a manhole there that it typically backs up and comes out of.
The one that's the custom cut manhole cover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're going to, I thought it was gonna be a lot
Do you see
more,
these?
but the cost of the parts is less than $2,000 to replace that entire line of the manhole all the way to the road. Complete with cleanouts every 100 feet. So, but it's the old clay pipe.
Yeah.
It is filled with
Shot.
leaks.
Where's it at?
That Olaf that doesn't exist.
Where you pointed out on that
Yeah.
map?
Right.
In
So-
the center of that.
Are we?
Okay.
That's another area of town that's right on rock. Are we sure that we're gonna have? I mean, is this just gonna be replaced as is? Does it have the right drop and everything? Because
Yeah. It's
Gonna be
been the
hard.
debris that's been getting hung up. in
There's
there.
trees, it's right next to a lot of trees, well, not a lot,
Big
but,
trees, so.
so there's definitely root, and they'll get in there and rate, you know what they do to a lot.
yeah, no. I guess I'm just asking because once we get in there and it's tore up, it would be a bad time to find that we have rock that we can't move.
Yeah, I'm assuming.
I got a jackhammer I can
Okay.
lend you.
I'm assuming that since there's already a sewer line right there, that they're gonna take it out at the last possible moment and
Sure.
put the new stuff in. They're basically gonna have it all lined up and ready to go.
I just don't assume that any pipes in this city are laid correctly.
We'll know when we get there.
There are some that are, I just don't make any assumptions.
So they're gonna do the bulk of that work with the backhoe.
Okay.
But right there, as you get closer to the road, it gets pretty tight between the trees and the buildings and everything, so that's
Right.
where he needs to go in with the Mini X, because it's just smaller.
The one we've been using, it will suffice, or does he need a bigger one, or?
No, the
Okay.
small, we need smaller, is what I'm saying, is
Okay.
another mini excavator.
Oh,
that
right,
can get
okay.
into the tiny space. So-
Perfect, it's perfect for
But he's gonna
that.
do as much of it as he can with the bigger machines, so we're limited on how much time we have to have that.
And material, what size, do we know what size of line?
4-inch.
It's only a 4-inch?
Apparently that's what most of them are.
Especially when you get into the rock areas, most of them are 4-inch.
I would, well, golly, on top of my head, I would recommend upping that size.
I think there's only 1 or 2 houses upstream.
But that mobile home park goes into that now too, or will?
It will. He's using his own private septic line to feed to it. So it should. I think most of this town is 4-inch.
We're going for, I think,
No?
granted for
Well, a lot of the
years,
downtown
6.
is either 6 or 8.
Yeah, we're gonna do it, I just assume do it right, and maybe a tad overkill, depending on price and stuff. Because it's better to have peace of mind than be out there and fight it forever.
And if it won't create any clearance issues, but I would agree if all things are equal. But I mean, I think yeah, I agree, we should do it, but the risk is also probably reduced in that is not an area of town that's gonna expand much beyond just because of what's up there. But yeah, if we can do 6, I think do that.
Speaking of which, while I'm thinking about it, would you pass that to Stephen? We've been missing a signature.
Oh, shoot, I didn't get, boy, my bad.
So that's my 2 cents, is that I think you're on the right path.
Okay. Approve the new claims. Which-
So moved.
Second. They're charging us, one call locates, who's that? Where you, I guess it doesn't. Okay, where does, okay,
I guess you need to sign.
I don't know if it was it Gavin also?
I'm on.
Oh, that's, sorry. Shockingly, I couldn't read that.
An artistic signature.
NKB, when's their last paycheck, I guess their last day.
The end of the year is, I believe, March or April is when that gets redone, or that renews into the next year.
Okay, but, yeah, they are paid that, fortunately, but are they gonna come back anymore in this month of November?
I believe they are done for the season.
Okay, that's my point.
Even
Thank
with all the
you.
leaves at the cemetery,
They apparently were out last Wednesday.
Yeah, they were
we put flags in the cemetery on
veterans,
Friday, and there were leaves there that have been there for weeks.
Okay.
So-
I'll double check with the guys, but I know that they came to town.
I can verify they were up there. Now, to what degree I didn't watch them the whole time.
On the previous Wednesday, I know they had somebody in the park picking up leaves,
I saw him in the park, yeah.
but that cemetery didn't look like it'd been touched.
Well, to my point, my concern was, we're paying them anyways, but I think a few years ago, they wanted extra money to come back and do leaves or some crazy
Or
thing.
to do
Yeah,
another one and to
and
blow out the
to blow
lines.
out.
And
Yeah, blow-
the lines have been blown out.
Okay, so right now, at this stage, I'd let Mother Nature take, because in the spring, it's gonna get a fine tooth one over. Hopefully the wind will, we don't get wind around here for some reason.
I know they're blowing them all into Ken's yard. That's why I
Yeah.
was anxious to get them picked up.
But
So,
Well, there was a period of time there, if we aren't out of it already, that it could have been argued that we had cause to terminate the contract because of some things. I don't know if we sit on that forever, if that will be the case, but that's part of why I made the motion a while back that we can't. We need to have a rope to grab onto as we swing to the end of this vine, and as I recall, no one made any bids to that. So I guess what I'm bringing up here is if there's a continued dissatisfaction with that contract and there's a desire to terminate it early, that window is closing based upon the legal opportunity in regards to what happened with Memorial Day.
Or lack of action.
Yeah, I have not, I reached.
I
out
can
to-
tell you I've had citizens since last council meeting make comments to me about them and their lack of performance.
Okay.
Well, I would agree with that. Just my own personal observations. I don't agree with the way they've been cutting it, and I don't. The cemetery now. The park, I think it looks fairly presentable, but definitely the cemetery. I've seen it look better, and I just not agreeing to the way they're doing it.
Okay.
But leaves, all the trees haven't lost their leaves. And where I'm going with this is if we have to pay them extra chasing these leaves around, at one point we gotta, call it quits for the year, because the wind's Mother Nature's gonna do a lot of things for us.
Yeah.
And that's my 2 cents.
Okay. Well, back to the claims as they're presented. We've got a motion to approve them,
A motion and a second,
and a second.
yeah.
Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you. All right. Mayor's comments, I just have a couple of things I wrote down. Got a letter from Anatech, their rates will not be changing in 2025.
Amen, all right.
And I wanted to know, it was mentioned at the last meeting to schedule some budget workshops.
Yeah.
So if you guys got thoughts on that, the way I'm looking at the calendar, we've got next Wednesday. I don't want to do it the Wednesday before, I don't want to have any meetings the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. I think that's bad juju. We've got December 4th, and our next council meeting after that would be December 11th, and I would love to have a budget presented and approved for 2025. And then also
My
just.
thought,
Oh.
I'm sorry, my thought is December 4th. I think we can, by then, all be present and have something ready for approval by the next week.
Okay. Any other thoughts on that?
I agree, maybe 1 or 2 workshops, yes, because I want to really work on a salary schedule, something that will assist you going forward, and so we're all following our own policy as well. So that's
So,
my thrust,
okay.
to get that, because everything else I think looks pretty good as far as the budget wise.
Okay, so we're in agreement December 4th at a minimum. Do we want to throw another one in there before the next council meeting? Which basically is gonna be next Wednesday. So do you guys want to meet next Wednesday on the budget?
I'll be there for anything that's scheduled.
What day is
The 20th,
20th? Okay, let's do it.
okay?
So November 20th and December 4th?
Yep. Okay. That was all I had for that. I've got public comments on here, but I'm guessing you've offered your say-so, so.
We bored them to death already.
Oh, no, I find this interesting.
Can we
entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn
I
tonight.
second.
We have a motion to adjourn, first and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Hi.
Thank you, guys. It is currently 8:17.
So, how new